we're going to preview the big one on Sunday, Manchester City against Arsenal. What have you made of the two sides' respective last couple of weeks when they've not been playing, Ali, but they've had players away on international duty? In City already without Walker and Stones for this one. So City favourites in your eyes, but Arsenal very dangerous. What do you make of it?
Yeah, that Manchester City favorites to win at home, but Arsenal a dangerous team, and a dangerous team that was carrying some momentum going into the international break. We will see if they're able to maintain that momentum. It's going to be interesting to see how Pep Guardiola deals with the absences that you just mentioned. I think if we're going to, in my opinion, if we're going to rank these absences in the way that Manchester City likes to play, Kyle Walker becomes critically important to Manchester City, or his absence becomes critically important for Manchester City. The way that Manchester City plays, and they like to commit these numbers forwards, and they like to have possession in the attacking half, and they're going to take some chances because they're committing defenders into midfielder positions, and so therefore they are very open for counter-attacking positions and counter-attacking opportunities for the opposing team, in this case Arsenal. Well, a lot of the times they get bailed out because of the speed of Kyle Walker, who's able to then make up the ground. And even if he's in a bad position, because he has that speed and athleticism, he's able to put himself in a position in which he can defend. With him not being available, those opportunities are still going to be there for Arsenal, and the speed is not going to be quite there for Manchester City. So it's something that obviously Arsenal will look to take advantage of. So yeah, if you look at this from the perspective of what has this international break done for or against one of these teams, you have to imagine and you have to say that for Manchester City, it has been a difficult one. As for Arsenal, it has been an ideal one. Mm-hmm. Everybody came back. They're all feeling good. Everybody's ready. No excuses. And I still don't think that this is a valid excuse for Manchester City either. They're going to find somebody else to do the job, and they're going to have to bring their best level of performance, which I think is the bigger question, regardless of who's playing or not for Manchester City. Their biggest question is performing at the highest level against top opposition in the Premier League. It hasn't quite happened against Liverpool. It didn't quite happen against Arsenal the first time around. Are we going to see the best of Manchester City? That becomes, I think, the bigger question.
Okay. Arsenal has won every Premier League game that they have played this calendar year. Do they keep going the way that they've been going, or does he tweak one or two things tactically for the trip to the Etihad, Mikel Arteta?
Oh, I hope he doesn't tweak anything. I hope that Mikel Arteta says, you know what? This is who we are. Take it or leave it. This is who we are. This is how we're going to play. Let's be aggressive. Let's stay in the face of Manchester City. Let's learn from what Liverpool did a couple of weeks ago, and how in the second half against Liverpool, the willingness of Liverpool to press higher up the field, to get the ball away from Manchester City, to harass Manchester City, how many problems and issues that created for Manchester City. If Arsenal are able to do that, even if it is away from home, I think they give themselves a better opportunity to get this result. If they take even a step back, even if they just allow Manchester City to grow in some level of confidence through the midfield, it's going to be very difficult for them. So I think honestly, if I'm Mikel Arteta and I'm Arsenal, I take a lot from that second half in the game by Liverpool against Manchester City, and I say, you know what? This is something that we can do because we have the players to do this, and we have the personnel to do this, and the personality as a team to do this. Let's get after Manchester City. What's the worst that could happen? So you lose the match, all right, but at least you lost the match playing in a manner that gave you an opportunity to win it. If you take a step back and you start protecting and you're not nearly as proactive as you have been, as you naturally are as a team, I think you're going to regret that if the result doesn't go your way.
It's totally subjective, this, as to who the best team is if everyone is playing at the top of the game. It's probably Manchester City, but they've yet to beat Arsenal or Liverpool this season. Why is that? Is it to do with maybe the fear factor isn't as great as it was when they were sweeping all before them last season, or what else?
I imagine the Manchester City fans would point to the fact that in a lot of those games, Manchester City have had many players missing because of injuries, and they haven't had their best squad available. My response to that is, fair enough, so be it. But again, I go back to that game against Liverpool, in which Liverpool was missing some players themselves, and yet, man, at the end, Jeremy Doku puts his boot on the chest of Alexis McAllister, and for some odd reason, it wasn't given as a penalty. But if that's given as a penalty and that score, then you're losing the game in a match in which you should have been dominating. You should have been winning. And that, I think, was disappointing from Manchester City's perspective, regardless of who was on the field. So I'm looking at Manchester City to really stick their chest out and say, all right, okay, this has all been cute, fun and games, but now let us be who we really are and who we think we really are and who everybody thinks that we really are. The best version of Manchester City, I think, is better than everybody else in the Premier League. It's just we haven't been able to see that consistently. And defensively is where most of my concerns are. As to what they do offensively, yeah, I suppose that there's some questions as to how aggressive and how clean their passing game is and whether they're able to isolate Erling Haaland in behind, if they're able to find spaces for him, if they use him correctly, if Kevin De Bruyne is able to find a pass. All those things you can question, and whether Phil Foden is going to carry his momentum. That's all fine and well. I trust that this team is going to be able to find goals, but defensively is where the questions have been, because everybody has been scoring against Manchester City, and if everybody's scoring against Manchester City, Arsenal will give themselves an opportunity to win this game.
Take you back, Ali, to October the 8th when Arsenal beat Manchester City by a goal to nil. Martinelli late on. Do you expect a similar game in this one, or do you expect something a little bit different when the sides meet on Sunday?
I think different, and I really think that Manchester City will bring a different level of performance, because it is required. Because it's not just a race with Arsenal; it's also a race with Liverpool, and so you have to be able and you have to be willing to bring the very best of yourself if you're Manchester City. And we all assume, and you mentioned in the intro, that Manchester City is the best team because of what we saw last season, because what we expect from this group, what they expect from themselves. But now we need to see it. And this is a game to see it. It's not against Bournemouth. It's now. This is the sort of match in which you really need to see the best of Manchester City, where they separate themselves from the rest. And I believe that this is a game in which Manchester City produced a whole lot more offensively than they did in that game against Arsenal the first time around, and that they did against Liverpool a couple of weeks ago. Where that's coming from, maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part, but I really do think that the potential for Manchester City is higher than what they have shown so far, certainly in the games that truly matter.
Yeah, the top three in the table separated by just 1 point. Arsenal and Liverpool on 64, Manchester City on 63. I was doing a bit of a deeper dive into the games that they've got left. Games in hand, Arsenal against Chelsea, Liverpool go to Everton, Man City go to Brighton. But it's the last 4 games of the season that get me. And no doubt Arsenal will be happy if they got a point on Sunday right now. But when you look a little bit further along the line, you see this, that City's last 4 games, at Forest, home to Wolves, at Fulham, home to West Ham. On a good day, that's 12 points out of 12 for City. Arsenal, tougher. Spurs away, Bournemouth at home, Manchester United away, and Everton at home are their last 4. And Liverpool have got West Ham away, Spurs at home, Villa away, and Wolves at home. Is it now for Liverpool and for Arsenal, after this weekend, about maybe taking a little bit more of a chance, knowing that Man City have got those last 4 games, and there's some tough ones, including both sides having to face Spurs for Arsenal and Liverpool?
Well, I have no doubt that there's somebody on the staff for all 3 of those teams that is taking a look at the very schedule that you just mentioned. When it pertains to the managers and the players, I think, and I imagine that they would have to be focusing on this weekend.
Sure.
Let's focus on this match. Whatever happens after this, we'll deal with at the time that is necessary to do so. Your focus and your concentration has to be on this game. And in the case of Liverpool, they're also paying attention to Manchester City and Arsenal, because it would be great for them if indeed this was a 1-1 draw. And they're both losing points while Liverpool is climbing and is creating some separation. So everybody's paying attention to this Manchester City-Arsenal game. I imagine that that's indeed the case for the managers and players. I don't believe right now that they are focused on the last 4 matches of the season. We'll worry about that when we get there, and we'll see where we are when we get there. At this point, I think it's critically important for them to focus on bringing the very best of themselves in what should be a really good matchup.
Spoken like a true coach, giving nothing away in each game as it comes and looking no further than that. So, what's your prediction for this one on Sunday?
It's going to be back and forth. I think it's going to be more open than it was the first time around. There's going to be opportunity for both teams. There's going to be chances for Arsenal on the counter. There are going to be opportunities for Manchester City, given their quality of their possession. I think in the end, they're going to be better about their passing in the final third. They're going to create some isolation for Erling Haaland, which they don't always do. Service is coming from my wide. Haaland is finishing chances. Manchester City win it 2-1.